Hey, welcome back. Today we are working on, for this mini lecture, welcome to Adobe Illustrator. My name is Dino, as always. Great to have you back. For some of you who may not be really big into digital design or the Adobe family, Adobe Illustrator is an industry leading digital design program. It can literally do anything you want it to do in terms of making a visualization. Especially something with more qualitative data, and you want to make something like really beautiful. What's a good part about this? Why is it an industry leading piece of software? It has a 30-year history. It's been around for a long time, so as a result, it's pretty robust, pretty developed. It's a vector based program. We'll talk about that in a minute. It's a really powerful piece of software. You could literally do, in terms of design, digitally, pretty much anything you can think of, as long as you knew the software. And again, to talk about it being robust, over its 30-year history, they've created over 10 versions of Illustrator. Probably much more than that, but there's so many different versions that, again, it's like all the kinks are out. It's pretty good, it's pretty robust. The bad is if you're a beginner to designing things, this software program might seem to you a little too complex, especially at the beginning. And then one other piece of the bad is that there are over 10 versions of Illustrator as a result. If you're working, you're teaching, and you don't have mirrored computers where everyone's running the same software, it can be a bit tricky because the interfaces are all slightly different. So I apologize if this becomes a bit cumbersome for you, depending on what software version you're using. I'm talking about vector graphic. Vector graphic uses computer mathematical equations to make really perfect curves, as you see on the left. The curves make these lines on here, the blue for the clouds, the rounded yellow for the sun, very smooth. Raster, which uses more pixels on the right, much less effective, and it looks really jagged. It's really good for other things like photographs, but if you're doing design, it's not so good. I want you to try to start Adobe Illustrator. So I'm just going to show you sort of the rudiments for creating a document in Illustrator. So if you have the software, and hopefully you have access to it, please launch it. You might want to pause the video right now. Welcome back after launching it. For the latest version, the CC version of Illustrator, go to File at the top, go to File, New right below it, and then hit New Document. This is the New Document window. I want you to click on the letter on the left, which is in blue. You want to get print letter size, so letter size again on the left is in blue. Then you want to hit inches on the right here, again it's in blue. The orientation is portrait, again that person icon again on the right in blue. If you need to, you can redo those steps if that was a bit too fast for you. Eventually, after you make whatever piece of, in terms of your exploration, whatever you want to make, please save your Adobe Illustrator work in two different file formats. I would suggest .ai, which is Adobe Illustrator on the top, and .jpeg on the bottom. And if I could use a metaphor, let's pretend we're baking. A .ai file is like the ingredients to a cake. So for example, you have the flour, the sugar, the salt, the baking powder, the vanilla, buttermilk, butter, eggs. When you do file save as .ai, it's like saving all the ingredients so that you could remix those ingredients and change them. When you save a .jpeg file or file export .jpeg, it becomes like a baked cake, which is good for its own reason. The reason you save the .ai is if you have any ideas afterwards where you're like, oh man, I really need to change how some of the layers of this Adobe Illustrator file look. You want to have access to the .ai because it makes it really, really simple. The .jpeg instead is like the baked cake, where after you have these ingredients and you've baked them into the cake, into the JPEG, extracting the buttermilk, flour, sugar, salt, etc. from a baked cake is impossible. So if you want to mess around with the ingredients, save the .ai. If you want to bake the cake, save it as a .jpeg or a .png file. And maybe for those of you, in terms of you're using other software, say I know most of you have used Microsoft Word, .ai files like saving a .doc file where you can play around with and edit the document to infinity. A JPEG is more like a PDF where after saving it as a .doc, as a .pdf, it's really hard, if not near impossible, to edit some of the content in it. There you have it. That's a really basic intro to Adobe Illustrator, some of the positive, negatives, and how to launch it and hopefully save a .ai file or export a .jpeg file. Thanks a lot. Looking forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.